Welcome to another episode of Mental Conversations, a podcast focusing on positive mental health and overcoming the struggles of life. My name's Chris Sutton, and today I'm very excited because I'm joined by possibly the coolest looking person I have ever met. It's Sam Lee. Sam is the head honcho of Slay Services. This is what how your mission is described online. So to empower people through education, providing them with skills they need to help themselves and others. You're a champion for good mental health and well-being, especially in the workplace, with over 10 years of experience delivering training to public and private sector and in communities.
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Wow. Is that about right then?
Yes, that is spot on. That's what I've been doing for the last 7-8 years, yes.
Cool. So essentially, we had a little discussion beforehand about how these things go, what we talk about. You're a mental health professional.
Yes.
I've had mental health issues in the past. I always say in the past, but actually it's in the present. I think it's just an ongoing thing. And essentially, I'm just interested in trying to ask people who have some experience about their experiences to try and help others get some hints and tips about what they might be able to do to help themselves.
Okay.
Sound all right?
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, as a mental health first aider, I know I say I'm a consultant, but I think my main area of focus is first aid, which is generally helping people to recognize the signs and symptoms of mental health or mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people just do not have a clue about mental health or what it may be about.
So when you talk about that, are you talking about there's quite a wide spectrum there, isn't there?
Yes.
So what do you cover within that?
Oh, it's a big one. So we start off with what is mental health,
Mm-hmm.
and then we look at depression, anxiety, all the different anxieties. So there's OCD, there's ASD, there's PTSD.
So can we just
all of those?
Can we just unpack that a little bit?
Okay.
Just for people who are real novices to it. So what does OCD stand for?
Oh, that's a big one.
So obsessive compulsive
disorder, yes.
And
then ASD is acute stress disorder.
Okay.
And then that leads on to PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress.
So these are big things.
Yeah.
These are big things. Okay.
And generally, what we cover all of those. So we cover all the anxieties. We look at suicide in details. So lots of people do not understand anything about suicide.
Okay.
So it's interesting. I was saying to somebody today about how we don't say commit suicide anymore.
You told me this when we first met.
Yes.
I said something about committing suicide, and you said that actually we don't really say that.
Yeah.
Just explain why not.
Because it's no longer a crime. So back in the day, it used to be a crime for you to actually kill yourself.
Yeah.
So they used to say you committed suicide.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the religious, whereby when you kill yourself, you go into hell and all that.
Okay.
Yes. So we don't say somebody's committed suicide anymore. It's something like they've killed themselves.
Yeah. And language is so important.
Very much.
Really
very
important.
Much. It all plays into the stigma part of it. So when the language is awful, people kind of feel if you say something, you're saying it against them.
Yes.
So there's an exercise we do where we get people to write negative terms about mental health that they can think of and positive terms. And generally, when you look at the positive page, there's maybe 4 or 5 things. When you look at the negative page, loads.
Really?
Yeah.
So this is an exercise where people they write a list about themselves.
Yes, well, about what they think when they hear the word mental health.
Mm-hmm.
What phrases or words they associate with mental health.
Okay.
So when you say, so what negative words do you associate with mental health? So you give people that exercise.
Yeah.
Give them the chance to write it up on the board.
Yeah, okay.
And usually they're writing so fast you can see the smoke coming out of the But when you say now, think about positive words you associate with mental health.
Okay. So what comes out of that exercise then?
Oh, I'm not sure I can repeat a lot of them on here.
No. I don't mean the words. I mean,
okay.
So what do people
What's
realise?
The point?
Yeah, what's the point?
It's the words we use against ourselves. So it's the word. So when I think about mental health, I think some people think example, one flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what you think of. So when you
Yeah.
have a mental health issue, it's difficult for you to tell somebody because you think that's what they're calling you.
That, do you know what? That's spot on.
Yeah.
And so for me personally, anyone who's ever listened to my podcast will know, some of the experiences I've been through, and getting to the point of suicidal thinking, and when you do. So, for example, when I was off work and signed off with depression, I asked my manager to tell people it was for some other reason.
Yeah.
And now I kind of look at that almost ashamedly. And I was in a very different place then, so I can forgive myself for it. But yeah, that is 100% about the stigma.
There are millions of people like that. I used to work in HR, and it's the same thing. People would rather call and say they've got something else instead of what they're going through.
Yeah.
And I do like to say you're living through a mental health issue. You're not suffering from it. You're living with it.
Actually, that's something I've tried to. In fact, have I said it in the introduction to this? Overcoming the struggles of life. I say at the introduction of this. I think that's okay. But yeah, when that phraseology of I suffer with anxiety, I suffer with depression. It's a phrase.
Again, yes, it's negative.
Yeah.
It's a negative word.
I went to a World Mental Health Day. There was in Leeds. There was a conference a couple of years ago where Alistair Campbell, Tony Blair's spin doctor, and then Clark Carlisle, the footballer.
I've heard him speak. Yeah,
well, they both
really
spoke
good.
at it, and I can't remember which one of. I think it was Clark Carlisle. He was saying about this continuum of like 1 to 10. That people are on all day, every day. You're somewhere on that line in terms of your mental health. You're never kind of, you're never off. It's not like I'm fixed, I'm broken. It's always somewhere along that line. And people that are struggling, if you like, the most, or people that kind of slip into that mental illness, kind of can't get out of the bottom kind of 1 or 2 of that for an extended period of time. Which is quite an interesting way of looking at it.
We are all on a continuum, and we always say recovery is possible. So some people think once you've got a mental health issue, that's it. You're done for life. Lock them up, chop the key.
Right.
But
Sam Lee
has
just said recovery is possible.
Recovery is possible.
I like that. I mean, I think that's something. # recovery is possible. It's a really positive way of thinking about it. When I talk about mental health, I try to talk about positive mental health. The peer-to-peer support group that I've spoken to you about on numerous occasions now, that is about focusing on positive mental health. It's not a group of people sat around saying, I feel awful, yet me too. It's what can we do about it? How can we talk about it? How can we leave this room feeling more uplifted than when we get in? So can I ask you, how did you get into it? How did you get into mental health?
It's 2 things. I used to work with the Department of Health. So as a physical first aider there, I used to treat a paper cut every 6 months.
Right.
Saw the opportunity to become a mental health first aider in the first instance, because partly I used to be a charity chair. I used to chair a charity within the African community.
Right.
And it's interesting because we don't talk about mental health within the African community.
Really?
Yeah. The language I speak, there's no word for mental health.
What?
So I speak Yoruba, which is a Nigerian language.
Okay.
There's no word for mental health.
Wow.
And if you find a word, it will be a very negative word, like mad.
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to dispel some of the myths and some of the scary attitude that people have towards mental health. So when the course came up within the Department of Health for somebody to come up and go be a trainer, I went along and went to do the course to be a trainer. And it's interesting because as a physical first aider, I used to get maybe 1 paper cut every 6 weeks, 6 months, rather. As a mental health first aider, almost every other week, I was having somebody pull me up to say, "Can we have a word? Can we have a chat?"
So is that what the role is then? So because I know that you run the courses now, so you are. So people that finish that course, they are then welcoming people to come and talk to them about their mental health. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Partly. Partly like a physical first aider is being able to spot the signs
Yeah.
and being able to confidently talk to that person.
Yeah,
Because I think it's amazing how many people would see something going on, but they're not sure what to say.
So what kind of signs are we talking about? If you were to take an example.
Signs of it could be depression. It could be somebody who's one day they're happy, they're great, and then for the next few weeks they might not be doing very well in the workplace. They might be absent.
Yeah.
They might have. It could be anything that they're going through, but it's being able to see that they're going through a tough time, and being able to we teach you how to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
We show you a lot. We talk a lot about listening non-judgmentally, because most of us listen to comment. We don't actually listen to just listen.
Okay.
So we teach you a lot about how to listen non-judgmentally,
Right.
how to have a frame of reference. So when you're talking to somebody, you're not judging them. You're stepping into their shoes and coming from their point of view. So as a mental health first aider, you're trained to be able to talk to somebody and draw them out.
That's fascinating. I can see that actually. Actually, I think I'm really guilty of that.
Okay.
Of listening without listening to make comment as opposed to just listening. Yeah, and I think probably a lot of people are.
Yeah, we're not trained to listen though, are we? We're trained to talk, we're trained to read, we're trained to write.
You're essentially planning what you're gonna say next. Yeah. So that becomes your focus, I suppose. That's interesting. So one of my fears around that, you don't want to put you on the spot too much, but on the mental first aid training, what if someone comes to you in crisis?
Okay, during the course.
No. I mean, so once they're back in their working environments, so I come to the mental first aid course, then I go back to my working environment. What happens if someone comes to me in crisis? Is there a safety net kind of?
So we've got, it'd be like the physical first aid where you've got Dr. ABC. So you look at danger, response, airway, breathing, circulation.
Okay, yeah.
We've got something similar within MHFA. It's copyrighted, so I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it.
Okay, that's fine.
Out wide. But it's basically, we teach you, if somebody comes to you in a crisis, how to deal with that person.
Okay.
So how to help them.
Right.
We say things like ask them if they've thought about killing themselves. Again, people say if you talk about suicide, you might make that person want to go and do it. But that's a myth.
Yeah.
Again, feel free to ask them. So what kind of things are you thinking about?
I've just been talking to someone about this. The last meeting I was at, the lady was saying to me that she's worried about a member of her staff who, and she's worried that she's going to be dismissed from work, and then she's going to end up sitting in her house with the with the curtains closed, and perhaps thinking these thoughts and ending her life. Yeah. And she was saying, she's literally just said to me, I'm worried about if I say that, I'm worried about that. It might put the idea in her head.
That's a myth.
Yeah.
That's a myth.
Okay, I'll get on the phone after this.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a way you do it, which is part
course.
of the things we teach you within the MHFA course.
Yeah, okay.
There's a way you actually ask somebody.
Okay.
Well, if somebody came to you in a crisis, when we say crisis, we're talking about a traumatic event, we're talking about suicidal thoughts, anything like that. We teach you how to deal with that person, how to help them, and just like a first aider, you kind of look after them until the professional arrives.
Yeah.
So you're not a doctor, and we always tell people you are not a doctor.
Yeah, that was
not a therapist.
That was my worry.
You cannot diagnose people.
Yeah.
And we have an exercise that we do as well, whereby we have different symptoms, and you've got to match a symptom to a diagnosis.
Okay.
And it shows how difficult it is for even doctors to be able to diagnose somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we don't diagnose people. We just notice they might be going through some tough times, and we just help them out. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it's clearly a very positive thing. Some of the I'm assuming you get quite a lot of positive feedback around it. So what are some of the stories that you might have heard about? I'm just trying to get this out there about promoting it. That people may listen to this and think, you know what, I want to go on that course, and really that's the purpose of this particular episode of Mental Conversations. Really, is to kind of inspire people to get involved in it. So what kind of I suppose, what does someone who does the course, what are they going to get out of it for their own mental health, maybe?
Yeah, so there's different aspects to it. I do have people come on the course, and I've had some letters back from participants.
Okay,
One recently, actually, I went to run the course for a mindfulness company. They teach mindfulness in York. And I got an email from one of the ladies saying, during one of the mindfulness sessions, a lady had a panic attack.
Right.
And during the course, we actually teach you how to help somebody who might be having a panic attack.
Right, okay.
So we teach you something called the dove, and you 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, kind of put your hand up and down to calm them down. So she didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have known what to do if she'd not been on my course.
Fantastic.
There's also a lady who sent me an email saying she'd been having an issue for a while, but she didn't know what it was until she came on my course.
Right.
And
So even recognising it.
that helped her.
I think personally, record your voice
Yeah.
and then just play it in the corner, because it's so calming. Like, I have to tell the story because like we arranged to meet each other through a mutual friend. In fact, 2 people said, "Chris, you've got to talk to this guy. You've got to talk to this guy." And then we never met. I had no idea what you looked like.
No.
And I was sat there in Colby's coffee shop, of course. I always mention Colby's. Shout out to Ali and Zoe. And I was sat there, and one of the ladies that had recommended you to me said, "You'll know him because he's the coolest guy you'll ever see." And you walked in and you had this cool hat on, and I was like, "That's my man. That's my guy."
Thank you.
Straight away. So yeah, it was pretty cool. So you got into it. What do you get out of it?
I love it. Like I said, my passion is empowering people, and it's something I've always loved doing. I'm a financial coach as well.
Okay.
So I sit down with families and I help them look at their finances, help them get from where they are to where they want to be.
Which of course that
financially
impacts on people's mental health massively.
Definitely. There's this thing about suicide whereby a lot of people kill themselves. When they do, it's either through money issues or relationships.
Right.
But usually behind the relationship, it's the money.
Okay.
So for me, those 2 things go hand in hand. Finance, mental health.
Yeah.
They work hand in hand. I love doing it. I love teaching it. I left a full-time job to be able to do this.
I mean, that fascinates me in itself. But having the actual kahunas to go and to actually go and do that is like, that's massive.
It was time. I turned 45 and I thought, you know what, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it.
Good for you, man. Because I know from having researched it, through having talked to you now, through knowing people that have been on your course, just how helpful it is to other people. And the reason I like to ask you questions and see about what your motivations are, what is it about it for you, Sam, that made you do it? Did you come out with things then like empowering? So you're not saying to someone, you must go and do this. You're giving someone the tools to then go and use them to actually help other people. But like you say, you're giving them the confidence and the empowerment to actually go and do that.
Yeah. There's a thing about, I'm not sure if you've heard this, I'm sure you have, where they say, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day.
Yeah.
Teach him how to fish, you feed him for life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's exactly what this is. It's just being able to give people the opportunity, they can take it away and help their neighbors, help their family. You'll be amazed how many people come on the course and there's family members who've got lots of different issues.
Yeah, of course.
I ran a course recently, there were 11 people in it, no, 12 people in it. When we came to suicide, almost half of the room had to leave.
Wow.
Because children had killed themselves. 1 or 2 attempted, nieces, nephews. And it's amazing how many times that happens whereby I run a course for 16 people, and usually there's 11 or 12 who've got personal experiences. It's a massive subject.
That in itself is an indicator, isn't it? I mean, it just shows you the. I have this conversation with people quite a lot. So I'll get asked to go and speak at events and things, and I enjoy it. I like going and talking about this stuff, but quite often there's a frustration underlying it that I'm speaking to the converted, preaching the converted.
Yes.
The people that are in attendance are already, mental health advocate. Well, what's the best way to describe it? They have an interest. So,
Yes.
like you just said, if on a course of 16 people, 11 of them have some kind of really in-depth personal experience of mental health through friends and family, that's kind of their motivation for being there.
Yeah.
One of the things I would really, I want to push the boundaries even further and try to get, I think, it's trying to get the hard to reach people that don't understand it, don't engage with it, because they also have a massive role to play in identifying people who have these signs that are giving off these signals that need some help, need some support. And equally, it's not just about intervention and helping people once they get to a point where they need helping. It's about people who are not suffering or not struggling, maintaining their positive mental health. That's the thing for me, is how do we. So it's a kind of two-pronged approach, if you like.
It's amazing. I mean, I love what I do, partly because of what you just said, whereby it's the common man, it's the regular person on the street who would come on my course. If it's for a company, I've been working within the construction industry recently. They've got the highest suicide rate, male suicide within the industry.
Right, okay.
So I've been running some courses for different construction industries.
So construction industry.
The construction industry, yes. So I've been running some courses for them, and it's amazing how I give them an evaluation form, and before they came on the course, it's like 1 or 2 knowledge of mental health. But when they finish, it's about 8, 9, 10.
That's amazing.
And because most people do not have a clue.
No.
Most people don't know.
And there's a kind of, I don't know, back to the kind of Alistair Campbell, Clark Carlisle thing. I think this was an Alistair Campbell thing. He said that, 20, 30 years ago, cancer was talked about, that people would say the big C or the C word, and wouldn't even say the word cancer. Any Harry Potter fans out there, watch out! I'm about to say Voldemort. But it's that kind of. It's kind of you'd go, oh, what's wrong with them? They've got mental health problems. You whisper it under your breath. And we are kind of right at the not right at the beginning, but we're still towards the beginning of this kind of process of going. So, for example, like with cancer. Now it is commonly spoken about, different forms of cancer. The more it is talked about, and the more kind of widely promoted the need is for support around it, the more kind of charities have sprung up around it, the more support people are getting, the more. I mean, I even heard.
People are more open.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I don't want to put them down, because, I don't want to suggest I'm putting them down, because they're obviously doing a fantastic thing. But I have heard there's a podcast called You, Me, and the Big C, I think, which is a group of women who have all been diagnosed with cancer that are talking about that experience. Yes. What an amazing thing to do! Talk about that, so that people who have had that diagnosis can actually, listen to just people that know what it's like. This podcast is a similar kind of thing for mental health.
Yes.
Where it's let's get it out there, let's get people talking about it and going, oh, okay, you know what, I have some bad days too, and actually maybe there are some different things, some things I can do about it to make a difference. So, and
it's amazing how many people come on the course, and I always encourage them at the beginning, please feel free to share. Everything we say in this room stays in this room.
Yeah, great.
Confidentiality is very, very important. But please share. and you'll be surprised how many people actually just talk.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because that is a course where you're there to learn something. Like the group that I attend and help to run is people. It's a peer-to-peer support group. So it's kind of the reason people are there. But it never fails to amaze me when we get new people. So we had a new guy the week before last, and he came up to me before the session. He could see I was standing at the front, so he could see I was the one who was going to be delivering the session. And he pulled me to one side and he said, "I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. I don't know what to do." It was almost, I could kind of see it in his eyes. He was kind of hoping I was going to dismiss him and say, "You don't have to come." And he said, "But my manager said that I should come to this. I'm currently off work with anxiety." I kind of, metaphorically took him by the hand, gave him a chocolate biscuit, a cup of tea, took him in and sat down with him, introduced him to some people that I knew were really friendly. They're all really friendly, to be fair. Anyway, when it came time, after we'd had the presentation, and it became time to sit and for people to talk on their tables, after about 2 or 3 minutes, he started talking, and by the end of the session, he was smiling, he was laughing, he was really engaging, and for me, it was like looking in a mirror. So the stuff he was saying, I was like, "That's me," and I was telling him that, and I deliberately sat on his table to make sure he was okay because it was his first session, and he just got so much out of it. Talking about it.
I mean, I go to a lot of events, and it's interesting when I introduce myself to people, especially the men. Almost every event I go to, a man would say, "Oh yeah, I've had depression in the past,"
Yeah.
Or they would whisper it rather than say what the problem is. Because they've heard I'm a mental health specialist. They feel like they can talk about it.
So tips. What we're saying to people is, talk about it. It's hard. It is hard. Don't get me wrong. It is hard.
It's good to talk.
But it's good to talk to each other about it. It's good to share your feelings with people, and I think it's something that it's a culture shift we're trying to do here, isn't it?
Yes.
We're trying to make this culture shift so that it is something people talk about. There is a lot of eye rolling. I think there's a lot of kind of eyebrows raised, and a lot of people sometimes that are like, "Oh God, do we really have to talk about this?" I'll
tell you a story. Spoke to a managing director last year, trying to get him to run the course for his company, and he actually turned to me and said, "Be honest with me, mental health is a myth, isn't it?"
Wow.
This was last year.
What did you say to him?
I was like, "No, it's not. 1 in 6 working adults will have symptoms of mental health issues in any year, and it's a big problem. Your staff, a lot of them are home now. They've not told you what the problem is because of your attitude. But they're all there, depressed and anxious. And he didn't buy into it because that's his attitude.
That's crazy.
But we need to change people with that kind of mindset. I think I'm passionate about men, very much about men talking about mental health. It's a shame really because we don't like to talk.
No, and I think think that because obviously you can't shut me up about it, so I'm like the opposite. I've mentioned this before with people. I think having your own action plan around what you're going to do for yourself is really, really important. I think setting some goals so that you've got the opportunity to, in a few, a week, a month, a year, to look back and reflect on, oh, okay, I have moved forward. Or looking at, are there any kind of, someone I was speaking to described it as like a spiral. Like, is there something I can identify that I feel at my worst? Oh, it's always after this.
Triggers.
Yes. Okay. Oh yeah. So triggers. Yes. So maybe after a bad night's sleep. Maybe after drinking 15 pints. Maybe after whatever it is. Maybe after an argument. Maybe whatever.
Your triggers.
If you can recognise those triggers, then there is something you can actually then do about it. Because you either don't drink 15 pints.
Yeah.
Or if it is an argument, okay, you're not necessarily going to be able to avoid arguments, but maybe you can then put coping mechanisms in place for how to stay calm.
Good coping mechanisms.
Good coping, yeah.
Because there's bad ones.
Okay, yeah. Oh, so like you mean like
smoking?
Yeah.
In my opinion, is a bad coping strategy.
Actually, you see that a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, my friend, God, this is going back a bit. This is just flown into my funnel. My son's a big Thomas the Tank Engine fan.
Okay.
My friend wrote a song called "The Cigarette," and the first lyric is when I light it, the cigarette lets me down. And the reason, and I said to him, what's it about? And he said he was at a funeral, and after they buried this person, he said, they were walking back, or to the wake or whatever, and half the congregation lit up a cigarette, and he was like, yeah, that'll help. Probably easy to say for a non-smoker, but
I mean, well, I smoked for 20 years, so I understand the addiction.
Yeah, okay.
I understand it. Why it's a bad coping strategy. Drinking is a bad coping strategy. Self-harming, eating disorders, they're all coping strategies.
Yeah.
For dealing with issues that may be going on in life.
Yeah.
And it's looking for good strategies rather than bad ones.
And the key there for me is that again, if you have like an action plan, I don't know if that's the right term, but if you recognise, so firstly, if you recognise when something's happening, so what the triggers are,
yes,
and if you realise, okay, so for me personally, I feel tired a lot of the time because I think I go to bed too early, if I'm honest. I think I go to bed too early, then I wake up really early, but then I get exhausted around lunchtime, and I'll have something sugary to kind of keep me going.
Okay.
And then in the afternoon, I'm like no use to anyone because I'm so tired again, and I crash, have like a sugar crash. So for me, I've recognised that, and now I can try and do something about it. Go to bed a bit later,
yes,
or make sure I have something healthier to eat, or whatever it is. But if you recognise it and then you can implement that thing, then you can try and repeat that until it becomes a habit.
Yes.
Yes. And then hopefully that won't happen to you. And then, like I say, you then look back at it 6 months down the line, and whilst you might not be skipping along the street happy, and there will be other things that you're unhappy with, you'll still be able to look and say, hey, I've moved on from that.
Yes, I did that. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's important that you set goals. I teach people something called the CCMP, which is having a clear, concise mental picture of what you want.
Right.
I've got whiteboard in my bedroom above my bed.
Really?
Goals, and not just mine, but my wife and my children. Got our pictures, put it on the dream board.
Tell me about that. What's on your dream board?
What's on my dream board? I want to retire at 55.
Okay.
I have a house in St. Vincent. That's where my wife is from.
Okay. So
we're looking to retire at 55, have something over there.
Is that just outside Skipton, yeah?
Definitely not. What else? My sons want to go to Disney.
Mm-hmm.
One of them wanted to go to the Caribbean. We've already done that. We've knocked it off the board. One of them for me was to be self-employed, which I've already crossed on. So as I achieve it, I put a cross through it.
Okay.
So it's still there.
Have you got the coolest man on the planet crossed out?
Not yet, but that will come. I can guarantee it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so having goals is very important. Personal development, in my opinion, is massive.
Yeah.
If you can see yourself as a better person a year from now, it makes a big difference.
And there's no end. There's no end, is there? You're never going to
develop it.
Yeah, because this is one of the things that always comes back to me when I talk to Nicola. I don't think I haven't introduced you to Nicola yet, but I will. Nicola's like a regular guest on the podcast, just because she's hilarious. And
she couldn't be there last time, actually.
That's right.
Yes.
And we bounce off each other really well. But she always kind of ribs me a little bit about being like a manager about things, because I used to manage her at work. and I would always be talking about personal development, and you're talking about it with a slant towards work, so it might be about developing your presentation skills, whereas so you set yourself these things at work, but then you don't do it in your home life, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, what's more important to you as an individual, and at the very least they should have equal importance. I'm going to have a mood board.
I mean, for myself, there's this stat that says out of 100 people, one is financially independent. No, one is wealthy, 4 financially independent, 41 still working, and 54 are dead broke.